Hello. Um, Today, uh, September 18th, C. Martin Croker, who worked on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. He voiced Zorak and Moltar, as well as other voices like Raymond. Um, um, Cartoon Planet, The Brak Show, and uh, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. He passed away today at the age of 54. Um, I don't believe I've addressed this before, but growing up, Space Ghost Coast to Coast was a favorite show, and it actually still is. It was a hilarious TV series uh, that you know gained a cult following and helped inspire a whole bunch of TV shows. A good deal of some of the early Adult Swim programming when they had new shows, and they imported Space Ghost from Cartoon Network into Adult Swim. Uh, some of them were very influenced by Space Ghost. Some would be spin-offs, like Aqua Teen Brak Show. And those are just very notable, some of notable examples. And then others would be just very big and inspirational for that show, like maybe that sense of humor. Because it does have a very unique sense of humor, and obviously a huge part of what gave that sense of humor life, aside from the jokes, was the voice acting. And George Lowe, Andy Merrill, and C. Martin Croker very influential for me. Of I could like do their voices of on Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and it was really cool. And they were just an influence of me wanting to do stuff like that, film stuff, even in animation. I've never done anything in animation, but hey, something like an animated movie could happen, and if so, Space Ghost would be a part of it, as well as the voice acting, and perhaps even the animation. Clay Croker, C. Martin Croker, didn't. He had limited resources of what he could animate for the main characters, so particularly Space Ghost. But he made the most out with what he had, and the show was amazing, and he is a vital part of Space Ghost. And it's one of those things. It's very somebody who grew up watching Space Ghost. It would be very like me. It's very much a huge part of your kind of like life. So when somebody from Space Ghost, dies, it's very, emotional, because it's one of those things. Even if it's like something like a TV show or even a movie, like the actors in there, it's like you like them, even if the characters they played weren't really the greatest guys or people. You still like them just because they're in that movie or in that show you liked. And Space Ghost for me would apply there, because I loved all of them. I loved all the actors. Right. I admire them. And they were, they helped form a sense of humor I had, even though I know it has to do with the writing, but sometimes they would improvise stuff, and I would get into the show, and all that together helped formulate my sense of humor, and it was very a huge part of my childhood and life. Uh, I just wanted to come on and say how, pay my respects, and I guess explain why Space Ghost and why everyone, in particular, C. Martin Croker, were very influential in my life. It was he who had the idea of putting Zorak and Moltar as main characters on the show. Like Zorak should be the band leader, and like Moltar the director. That was also a big contribution he put into that show. So that's just something else that without him providing the voice for those two characters, actually, if it wasn't even for his idea, those two characters might not even be on the show. And if not also for him being a very well animator, even though it might seem like stock animation, which in a way it is, but without him doing it, it just wouldn't be, if somebody else did, it might not be the same. I know there were other editors or animators, but at the same time, he was a very core animator, so he was like kind of like the animation director of that show. And but without him, it just, those little touches he would do wouldn't be like, it wouldn't be the same show. It may not have lasted as long as it did, and it may not even perhaps the cult status that it has as a cult classic TV show may not really even perhaps held up thanks to his contributions, no matter even how small they may be or may have seemed. And it's a situation where it's kind of like when somebody from like a certain person, like even though as a voice actor and animator, maybe C. Martin Croker isn't necessarily as well known as some of other voice actors, like Mel Blanc, Don Masick, Mike Judge, Dan Castellaneta, Harry Shearer, Hank Azaria, the Simpsons cast. Even though he and even the rest of the Space Ghost adult the rest of the Space Ghost, Aqua team, Brak show crew, because they all really worked together on all those shows. Even though they may not be as well known to those who really love and even appreciate those shows, we love them. We love them all, and I might equate it in a way of like the passing of Robin Williams. And what I mean by that is when Robin Williams died, we all were very sad and shocked that he died. It was very sad. To Coast Aqua Teen fans, we love Zorak, we love Moltar, we love Dr. Weird and Steve, and part of a reason why you love those characters is because of C. Martin Croker. Clay Croker helped give life to those characters. He gave new life to Zorak and Moltar. He helped out so much with those shows, and his contributions may have been small or may even seem small at the time, but they helped very much. And it's the same thing as, like, now that he is gone, it's very sad. He will be very missed. And I think we should appreciate what he has done for Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and even animation. Because even, like, some of the stuff that he did for Space Ghost helped influence some of the animation styles of, like, stock, kind of like animation that was already done way back when, and now doing it now for 90s and 2000s TV shows, cartoons. And he, when he did that, the early shows, like also C Lab 2021, they did that too. And he may not have necessarily been a pioneer in doing that. I mean, that had been doing that. They have done that for a long time in animation, but really by that time, but with the sort of style that he helped incorporate into Space Ghost, that kind of helped with some of the other animation style choices, maybe for some of the early Adult Swim shows. I'd at least like to think he had some influence, even if he didn't help out within the animation department there on those shows. I think I would at least like to think he did, just because I don't know, it just seemed like he would have been some sort of influence in one way or another. Like, it's like at that time, it seemed like Space Ghost was like the bar, and try to reach that bar. And a lot of the shows, particularly early shows, did meet that bar. And depending on who you talk to, they may have even exceeded that bar. But C. Martin Croker will be missed. His legacy will, to me at least, will live on. And tonight at 11:30 Central, I live in Iowa, so it's Central for me. But 12:30 Eastern, basically within a half hour, they will show the very first Space Ghost Coast to Coast episode that was produced in honor of C. Martin Croker. So, if you love Space Ghost, if you love the works of C. Martin Croker, all of that stuff that I've mentioned, I'd suggest tune into Adult Swim for that half hour, or really just 15 minutes, actually, because Space Ghost Coast to Coast was 15 minutes, which was kind of a funny little gimmick they did, like 15 minutes of fame, so the show's 15 minutes. But which influenced some of the other runtime of a lot of Adult Swim shows. And just give it a watch. And I'm glad to see Space Ghost on Adult Swim again. I personally wish it was for happier circumstances, but when something like this happens, sometimes tuning in on that time just even for that little bit of time, to give a final farewell to an amazing voice actor and animator. That's a nice way to say goodbye to him. And again, kind of like Robin Williams, people like me who enjoyed Space Ghost, those voice actors were kind of like, it's like they were some sort of part of our family in some way. George Lowe, C. Martin, Croker, Andy Merrill, they were all kind of like family to us all in one way. Like, they may have been like those uncles you see every time the family gets together, like for holidays or something. But C. Martin Croker, you will be missed, but your legacy will live on. To me, to all the Space Ghost Coast to Coast fans, all the Brak show, Aqua Teen Hunger Force fans, and I think even just a fan of people who like Adult Swim really in general. I think people know his importance. Who watch the various shows on Adult Swim. I would think so, but maybe not. That's really all to say. I wish I had got to meet him at least once, but living in Iowa, any conventions that he and any of the other cast and crew members would have attended, I believe, would have been in Georgia, where they all live, where they basically lived in the film, or the shows were produced. But C. Martin Croker, you died unexpectedly at the age of 54, but you will be remembered. And I know it's kind of repetitive, but sometimes it's just good to say it again and again. Rest in peace, man. Thoughts, prayers, condolences, all that with your family and your friends. Because as much as us fans are missing them, those closest to them are missing them even more. And you're like family, and you were amazing. You were great at what you did. You will be remembered. And with that, I bid farewell. And remember to watch Space Ghost Coast to Coast at 12:30 on the East Coast, 11:30 here, and whatever other time zones it is getting close to. Goodbye, everybody. Until next time.